Since the last episode, the iPhone surpassed its 15th anniversary on January 9th. We have a new segment that is official now. It's called Our Recent Photos, where we look at some images that Dave and I have been taking since the last episode. We have some tips for you, and we talk a little bit about the new iPhone SE with 5G, maybe, or will there even be one? We even go off track where we talk about cellular tech and Apple stuff that has nothing to do with iPhoneography because it's been a slow week. All this and more on the iPhoneography podcast coming up. It's Monday, January 17th, and this is the iPhoneography podcast. My name is Greg McMillan, and I have my esteemed co-host, after he shoveled himself out, Dave Podner. Hello, Dave.
Hey, Greg. Yeah, it kind of felt like around you with all the snow and the cold we've had in the last day or so.
I must admit, though, you have probably 3 times as much as we do right now.
Yeah,
Believe it or not.
Well, yeah, we got hit by Izzy. So it's different that they're naming the winter storms in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, isn't it? You'd almost think they're like hurricanes or something.
Exactly. So
it's not the result of a hurricane, though, is it?
No, they're just naming storms. Just naming storms. I think it's also it's hard to get in the mind of why people do things, but it may be part branding.
Who knows?
Because people think snowstorm, no big deal. Like, we got 8 inches of snow in literally like a little over 12 hours. It took started for me like 4 p.m. and it finished up at 9 a.m. the next morning. So, we're talking definitely less than a day and overnight. And you go from completely clear to, oh, you better hope you don't have an emergency because the ambulance may not be able to make it to your house.
Yeah, and folks, if you want to follow along with the progress of that snowfall, go to Dave's Instagram. He's got it logged there, I believe. Do you have all the pictures on there? I know it's in your story right now, but when this comes out,
I did have it in the story, but
posts.
Yes, what I did was, and this is a little minor tip, that if you have a story actually telling a story, which a lot of people just don't, it's just kind of like, oh, here's something that's a throwaway picture type thing. But if you actually do have a story out of like a group of pictures that you have in your story, you can hit the little button on the upper right and save the story as a video.
Oh, nice. Okay,
cool. So I put a quick little video time lapse, a little bit slow, unfortunately, because you can't control the speed or that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a pain, and I didn't really want to go into iMovie or anything else to edit it, take the time. But yeah, so I just did so it's a little, so you can see the time lapse and putting the time in, and you can see the snow just crawling up, and then hitting that 8-inch mark.
Well, that's kind of cool. So today we're going to just kind of bounce back a few days here, actually a week and a bit, because we missed, since our last show, the anniversary of the initial iPhone announcement that Steve Jobs did on January 9th, 2007. So we thought we'd just take a quick minute here to kind of reminisce about that, announcement and how it maybe changed things. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think the iPhone has definitely changed the world because, it changes the way we do things. I mean, if it wasn't for the iPhone, Dave and I wouldn't be sitting here doing this show talking about iPhoneography because, it's changed the photographic industry by completely, all but obliterating the point and shoot market. So, what do you, so do you remember if or anything, Dave, do you remember where you were, what you were doing when that announcement happened?
Well, I remember it was during Macworld. When there was a Macworld and Apple went to Macworld, and it was a lot of lead time, and everyone knew they were going to talk about something. The rumors were heavy that And the thing is, there was already another product called the iPhone that Apple had nothing to do with.
Yes, I do vaguely
Yeah.
remember hearing about that. And
So
I gotta say, I don't really recall too much of this because
yeah.
I wasn't really following Apple back then. I was big BlackBerry guy. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
rely on you to reminisce about this one.
But I remember the couple big things were that it was everyone was like, well, because you had iPod, of course, no iPad, you had iPod, and people are like, well, they're going to call it the iPhone. We're like, or people are like, oh no, someone already owns the trademark. They can't just use iPhone because someone's already using it. And what are they going
And
to
it
call it?
was some
Oh,
kind
Apple
of
phone.
tech company, wasn't it, that had
It
that
was, yeah, it
like
was an
Xerox or something?
I don't know Xerox, but it was an internet-based home phone, if I remember correctly. So
Okay,
it
yeah.
wasn't a cell phone. It was a way that you could have a phone, a regular home phone, but it somehow had connected up to the internet so you could get information on it, and it sold. No one sold it. It's literally one of those things of the only reason people heard of it was Apple was going to call something the iPhone, probably. So
Oh
everyone
yeah.
said, well, is there anything else called iPhone? So Apple can't use it, not knowing. This is the positive and negative with someone like Steve Jobs saying, I'm going to call it iPhone. Well, someone else already owns it. No, I'm going to call it iPhone. We'll get around it. We don't have to worry about that. There's ways around it. We'll pay him off, or we'll do something that, we'll just take care of it. We'll take care of it somehow. So, but I remember there was the buzz, and of course, and anyone can look up the keynote, which is like the icon, like one of the iconic keynotes in Apple history.
Yeah,
Where he
yeah.
said, where he goes over, and if you notice, he says a widescreen iPod,
Hmm.
a mobile phone, and a internet communicator.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he talks about that. He said, "Are
And he
you getting
repeats
it?"
it. Yeah.
Right. It's not three products; it's one, and we're calling it now. Ask people, do they use their iPhone as an iPod?
Yep.
Especially like a widescreen iPod. They may use a streaming service like a Spotify or Apple Music or something else. I mean, honestly, those are the two biggies, or YouTube Music. They may use that to listen to music, but they don't download songs to their phone anymore. Really, it's all
Probably a
streaming.
very small percentage of people would do
Right,
that now, I would think.
right,
Yeah.
right. And the biggest cheer was for the phone. And I guarantee you, most people do not use their iPhones as phones.
Yeah, it's funny how that's come
It's
around, eh?
like the smallest little bit. It's, you know, whether it's FaceTime, which wasn't around then, or, with the camera or video, which it didn't have video, or the quietest reaction was the mobile communicator.
Yeah,
Which,
because nobody knew what he was talking about, really.
yeah, I mean, you kind of like, well, I had a phone that had, I had a flip phone that had internet, and it was the mobile cell phone internet, which was all text based, no pictures. I even had a phone a little before that that was the handspring visor, which was like a Palm PDA, but it had a module you can add in to make it into a cell phone, literally a cartridge.
Oh yeah.
But even that was, I mean, even though that had internet, we're talking early 2000s, late 1990s, low speed internet. So it wasn't like people using it like, because I think still most people, this thing is the most powerful thing they have in their pocket right now. I mean,
Oh, for
from
sure.
a
Oh,
computer they
heck
have in the
yeah.
house. Most people, this is still more powerful than the PC that they're using, either Apple or a
Hmm.
Wintel machine. Also, the screen was teeny tiny little small compared to what we have now. We thought it was huge. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
remember when he said
Well, you
that, and
you on a recent show, you held up your 13 Pro
Mhm.
Max, and then you held up an old iPod, an iPod
I'm
Touch,
reaching out screen here. I'm reaching out screen here.
and the iPod Touch sideways to the iPhone
I got even better.
vertically.
I even got better. I had my first iPhone because
Oh, really?
this thing was so damaged, I couldn't trade it in.
Okay.
So I still have my 4S. And let me hold it up to the camera here. See, so you can see how.
Yeah, it's got a good smash on it there.
Yeah, there and then the back was.
Yeah.
There's a screen protector on here, so the glass wouldn't fall. It isn't falling out, but just a little bit of a
Yeah.
difference in size there.
Yep. That's insane. I
But
could not
yeah.
imagine going back to that.
Oh no, no. Here we go. So let me get the bottom of the screen lined up so you can see the screen is like, yeah. And of course, then when Android, now I know Android people will say Android made a big difference, and it did. It completely did, especially when
Oh,
you
sure.
got later down the road. But there were Android phones before the iPhone came out.
Yeah.
They look like
And
Blackberries.
and BlackBerry had a touch screen.
Yeah.
I had a BlackBerry Torch.
But
Thought
it
it was
also
the
had the key.
cat's
It also had
butt.
the keyboard. But it also had the
Yeah.
keyboard.
Yeah.
And the BlackBerry and the Androids at the time had the little chiclet keyboard. They were clones of, and this is before Google bought them, when Android was its own little thing. They were
Yeah.
basically clones of Blackberries. And when the iPhone came out, they said, we got to switch because this is the future. And BlackBerry was in complete disbelief.
Yeah, they ignored it, and then look what happened to them.
Yeah, and Microsoft was in complete disbelief. Steve Ballmer with his, it's like $700 for a cell phone. Who's going to pay for that? Well, I agree. No one at the time was going to put out $700 en masse, but it was enough where you could get production and people wanting it, and then the price went down significantly after that. So yeah, it was a different market back then too, because at least in the States, well, it wasn't available in Canada for a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm not sure when it was first brought here.
Yeah,
Like
it
I
was a
say,
couple of years later.
I didn't get my first iPhone until the 4S, which was in October of 2011. I want to say it was shortly after Steve Jobs passed away.
Yeah.
And so you said the 4S was your first one too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we probably started about the same time. I was thinking there was going to be a bit of a lineup on launch day at my local carrier, but no, I got in there. I had to wait for like one person to get looked after. There's no lineup or anything, but yeah, I was really big on BlackBerry. And then when people at work found out I bought an iPhone, I literally had one guy come into the color booth that I work in, and he looked at me and he says, "Is it really true?" I said, "Yeah." And and I haven't looked back. But I mean, on another note, not only is it the 15th anniversary of the initial iPhone announcement, but BlackBerry has announced that they're discontinuing legacy BlackBerry products. Like they killed them. They're done. If you had one, I forget what day it was that they flipped the switch, but if you had one, it would just stop working. There'd be no signal, there'd be no nothing. I don't know if it would work on Wi-Fi. Maybe it would. I don't know, but gosh, I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't, because you'd have to have some kind of connection with the BlackBerry servers or something. But I mean, BlackBerry's still going. They still have their Android powered phones, but as far as the old legacy BlackBerries, like the old curves and bolds and all that stuff, they're done. They've killed them off. So yeah, it's interesting. They've come a long way, and it's on I guess the 15th iteration with iPhone 13 line. And
honestly, it's hard to lose. It's so easy to lose track because no one's consistent with the numbering systems.
I know. Yeah. It's too bad they just didn't start with iPhone 1, iPhone 2, and just go on like that. But, the iOS version, it's the only thing that's really in line with the number of years that they've been in existence.
Yeah.
And because they're on iOS 15 now, and it's the 15th year since they've announced it. So, there's always that to go by. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just thought it was interesting, and you know, uh, good on Apple. They've hit the $1 trillion mark in their market cap and all that stuff. So who knew back then? I wish I'd had $1,000 worth of Apple stock, but anyway, so we're going to move on to our new segment that we started on the last show, and it's called Our Recent Photos. Because in your camera roll on your iPhone, you've got your albums, and your recents is the one where your newest photos are. And so Dave and I are going to talk a little bit about photos that we've taken since the last show. So do you want to start, Dave? Because I should say too, we're going to work these into tips as well. We're going to try to do tips every time, as much as we can on these shows too, just to kind of help people with their photography. That's it's all about learn what you can, share what you, learn what you can, and share what you know, that type of thing. So
and since we're sharing the photos now, we can say, well, here's what this photo, and then we can share the photo and say, here's what we learned from taking this photo.
Yes. Right.
So that is always a big help versus just trying to be more, without the visual. Now, of course, if you're listening on the podcast, we will be as descriptive as possible. Greg will do his magic.
On the enhanced version, you'll be able to see it on your phone screen. Right. If you have the iPhone or the Apple Podcast app, or on Pocket Casts, I know it works. Other than that, I honestly don't know if it works, but I'm pretty sure Spotify, it does not work, unfortunately. But
I haven't noticed it on Overcast, unfortunately.
It doesn't?
I haven't noticed it, no.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, but honestly, most of our listeners listen on the Apple Podcast app. So, all right. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I've got Dave's photo lined up here.
And the world famous Mr. Leo here.
Yes, episode 247 on Tiny Shutter. Go look it up.
And I'm talking about you, boy. This was actually taken. This may be a little TMI, but you take photos where you take them. I was in the porcelain library, to put it one way, and he was sitting at my feet. You can see the vent right in front of me here.
Oh yeah.
So he was just sitting in front of me, and I thought he was just having these really neat poses. And the only light here was the light from the hallway. I didn't have the light on in the room. So I just, kind of very slowly, you can see a little reflection in his eye there, just held the phone there, and it did night mode.
Okay.
Because it was dark enough, but it turned out really good. It was, I didn't touch the sharpness at all in terms of adding sharpness or adjusting it that way.
Right. Yeah.
And then I put it in, I'm kind of getting in where I'm in the past was only doing polar. I'm kind of doing a two-step now a lot of times, where I'm using Pixelmator Photo, because I think it does a really good job with their machine learning.
Right. Yeah.
But for me, the only, I would say two disadvantages of Pixelmator. I haven't found where you can I only want to adjust the foreground, or only want to adjust the background. It's an adjustment for the entire photo.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to get a mood or a scene or different styles, I'm not finding as much success. Where something like Polar, where they have the styles kind of built in, and you can see what other people have done with the community. So I did the Pixelmator, but it made it very, very, very clear, made it a little sharper with the whiskers. Automatically, nothing overly done, but it made it almost too bright. I still wanted it to look like a night scene.
Okay, yeah.
So I threw it into Polar after this and adjusted it so it would have that nighttime feel to it. And other than that, just nothing else. It was just kind of how the photo turned out.
Yeah. Well, it does have that nighttime feel because, you could tell it's all artificial light. Of course, clearly you can see it, the reflection in his eyes. But it does have that, that kind of mood to it that shows that it's definitely taken at night. And I mean, his left eye, which is right in the forefront of the image, it's so dark because obviously it's kind of, his head's turned away from the light a little bit, and you can't see, the pupil and all that stuff. It looks like his pupil's like as big as his eye, but it isn't. But
Well, you
it's
know
really
what though?
cool the way.
Look to the right. Look to the right of his eye.
Yeah, you can
Or
see a
our
little
right,
bit
his
there.
left. You can see a little bit of the iris. So, cats can get their eyes so large, the
Oh
pupil so
yeah,
large. And because it was dark enough, and since it was, like I said, I was able to do it without the flash.
yeah,
So just let his eyes open like that.
yeah. That's cool. But you got detail in the ears and the whiskers, and still there's a fair bit of detail in the background, on the, looks like a little rug on the floor there.
Yeah.
You can still see the texture in that, and yeah,
Yeah.
it looks really good. So your second one, now this is interesting.
Yeah. This is when this was a recent 5 mile race I did, the frigid 5 miler, which wasn't frigid. It was more soggy, unfortunately. Um, it was just, a little bit, they put it in the middle of January to be cold.
Yeah.
And kind of the unofficial mascot is the, you want Yeti, abominable snowman, what do you want to call it? And they're on
Right.
it's on all the medals and all the swag you get. So really nice medal this year. But when I took a picture of it up close, and you can see my thumbprint on the bottom left of how close I was able to get on
Oh,
there.
okay. Yeah.
Or I don't know if it was my thumb or but fingerprint there. I actually went into Polar and did a couple of overlays on this with the lightning bolts, which just happened to go right through its eyes,
Yeah.
and the light leak.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
think,
that's
like I said, for something like this, I made sure at least the color of the metal wasn't weird. It is a white metal. It's got the teal blue snowflake pattern in the background.
mhm.
But I wanted to do just something fun and unusual with it. And
Yeah.
Polar has a lot, and this is the free version of Polar, a lot of overlays that you can try out.
Yeah.
Either different types of lightning, atmospheric effects, other things like that. So you can do all kinds of things and just put it over top of an image to get a little creative.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, I do like the way the lightning bolts go right through the eyes. And
Mhm.
now, was that intentional or was that just a happy accident?
It was, I would say when I put the lightning bolts there, I noticed that the distance was pretty close to the eye distance, because you don't, at least with when I did the Polar, you can see a generic look of lightning, but until you put it on there, you don't get a real good feel for, okay, this is what it actually, width wise and the adjustments you can do,
Yeah.
because you can make it more or less prominent. So you can make a little bit of a difference that way.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now your
And
third
also
one.
I'll say
Oh,
before
go
we move
ahead.
on, and also for fun, I took that, put it in TikTok, and they put a couple sparkle um, effects in it.
Oh, really?
So I put a little sparkle, and of course in TikTok you put music behind everything. So if you're familiar with the song, the Immigrant Song,
Oh yeah, Led
okay,
Zeppelin.
which, yeah, exactly. I see. I didn't know the name of the song. All I
Oh
knew,
yeah,
it
okay.
was the song from Thor.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And with the lightning and with the sparkling, I thought it would just fit perfectly.
And part of the lyrics is something like "in the land of the ice and snow."
Exactly.
Very
Exactly. So
fitting.
it was just like, oh, that was perfect.
Yeah, yeah. So did they put the music in, or did you choose it?
I chose it. I chose it.
Okay.
Yeah, when I got that picture, I just saw the picture and I thought, the scene from Thor where he comes down and he's got the lightning as his eyes kind of go white,
Oh yeah.
and I thought, oh, that would be great to have that music. And I thought, okay. Then the first thing I did was go to Google and say, song from Thor.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, oh, you mean this song? I said, yes, that's the song I'm thinking of. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Google.
Well, that's awesome. So, okay, so now your third image,
Yeah,
it's going to lead into your tip. Um,
exactly.
let me
And
see
it's a
here.
set of 3 images,
Oops.
actually.
There we go.
So,
Here, so this is the first one.
right now, in Pittsburgh, there's 2 kind of famous overlook areas. The one you see a lot on TV is actually a little further down on your right if you're looking at the photo, Mount Washington.
Okay, yeah.
That's the it's closer, it's more famous. There's touristy areas there. They're the high-end restaurants. This area is the West End Overlook, and this is straight. There's a park here, but this is straight residential.
Oh,
This
okay.
is literally you walk maybe 100 feet one way. You just got average houses, not tourist stops, not little fancy restaurants, just average houses.
Yeah.
And the parking's not as good, so this isn't as well gone over as the other touristy part. But the thing I wanted to bring up here is that I took 3 different, basically same shots using the 0.5, the 1, and the 3x zoom.
Hmm.
Now, from where this image is to downtown to the point, you're talking a mile and a half away, kind of straight distance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
doing I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, yeah, it looks like it's a fair piece
Yeah,
away, especially with that ultra wide.
exactly. And with the ultra wide, you see, and the sky was really expressive this day.
Yeah.
So with the ultra wide, you're able to see the streaking of the clouds, and it looks like if you look at the clouds, they look like they're actually converging. They aren't, but just the way it is, they look like they're converging to a point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the fact that you can see not only the downtown area, but if you look off to the left, you can see the Manchester neighborhood, and all that kind of like spread out area where it's the little flat area on the left before you get hills on either side.
Yep.
And then,
Hmm.
like I said, this was the 0.5, and this was doing 0.5 and the 16:9 built-in shot,
Okay. Yeah.
which is, I believe, the 10s or 11 and later that will allow you to do that
Yeah.
built-in.
I believe the 10S can do it.
Yeah, the 10 could
Yeah.
not. My old 10 could not, but
Right.
this one, but with the newer ones, you can say, I want to take a 16. And of course, if you take a 16:9 shot, it captures everything. So if you want to, reconfigure this and deal with a different crop, you have that image still.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So if you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't really want a super wide, I wanted you can go higher and get a different shot. I just like
And
the almost pseudo panoramic feel of it,
yeah,
especially with the ultra wide.
this would look much better, obviously, in the summertime with the green foliage and that. But I mean, I think the sky really makes it, though.
Yeah.
You lucked out with that because um, had it been like completely overcast and solid gray, it would not look nearly as good.
No.
You'd have to go into Polar and redo the sky.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool. And so the next one.
Yeah, this is the 1x. So this is, again, almost the exact same location. I just kind of moved the camera over a little bit to get downtown where it's centered. So you're getting a lot closer. You still see the downtown, but you still see a little bit of the surrounding area.
Mhm.
So you can actually see the West End Bridge kind of going right in front of us here. And on the left, you can see the football stadium with the yellow seats
Oh
there.
yeah.
And right in front of that, the thing with the weird kind of, like cone-like on top, just in front of the football stadium to the right.
Yeah, like a funnel kind of.
Yeah, that's where the science center is.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Okay. That's where
Yep.
you were
And
last week
then, yep.
or 2 weeks ago.
And the building just to the left of that, kind of right over the bridge, is the casino.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But
And that's one of the famous yellow bridges.
Yeah. So you have the Western Bridge in front of us, but the other thing I like is because kind of the touristy image is like hard into downtown, which is, I did that too, but I like this because you can also see the areas around the downtown area. Like you can see the coal barges kind of right in front of us.
Yeah.
And the railroad that kind of goes right along the river, and see some, the little bit of industrial that's still around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's very well composed because the way you've kept the complete bridge, and even the way the road, as it comes off the bridge on the lower left there, it swoops around to the right, and you've kept that all in the frame, and that really, I think it just really adds to it as it swoops around and goes towards the casino. Yeah, had that been cut off, and then you'd see, like, you'd almost wonder, okay, well, where does that go? But you can still see it, so that's kind of cool. Yeah. And then the third one, wow.
Yeah. Now this is the 3x. Now I did put this in Pixelmator Photo to do the super resolution to help out a little bit and boost the colors a little bit, because you're getting 3x on an overcast day and we're pretty far away. So but it still worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
The only thing I would have, looking at it, the only thing I would have done differently is the bridge on the right, the Fort Pitt Bridge. If I could have just a little bit, so I wouldn't cut off a little bit on that.
Yeah.
But overall, yeah. And like I said, this is just the 3x. So again, the problem with the 3x for the app, for the iPhone, is low light. Well, I'm in the middle of the day here. It's, even though overcast, bright enough, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
And it still comes out close enough where you can actually read the lettering on some of the buildings there.
Yeah, and it does surprisingly well for the aperture they put into that 3x camera. I was really expecting it to struggle with noise and everything else, but I guess the image signal processor and all that stuff that they've,
it does pretty amazing,
ramped up in the 13 Pro. It's done a really good job. Yeah.
But this is kind of tying into the thought process. Is most people who go up there will take, if they can, depending on what camera you have, this type of shot, the zoom in up close, get the detail on the big buildings. But we do have, even if you don't have the Pro, you still have the wide and the extra wide,
Oh yeah.
And it does not hurt to say, okay, I'm going to take that photo. You know what? Let me go for the extra wide, or let me go to a different zoom that I was planning on to, because it is an optical zoom. You're not, so you don't have the digital, you have artifacts, because again, we're talking very small lenses, but you're not having the digital artifact of, and I did try a couple of shots just to see what the 15x zoom looked like. It was splotchy, but that's kind of expected because it's 5x digital.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
So it's not going to look good. Yeah, there's a limit. There's a limit to what you can do digitally.
Yeah.
So, but if you're in a place and you're like, okay, you know what, I'm going to take the extra half second, minute, whatever, let me zoom out and either go widescreen or 4:3, or try a different resolution. Get the shot that you have in your head, because I think a lot of us have, like, okay, this is a shot I have in my head, and this is how I want to turn out. But you can also make it where it's like, okay, I'm going to try something different. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's a learning experience.
Yeah, that's
because
right.
when I was up there, I took I know this isn't a lot for some people, but it was cold. And I had my gloves off to use the phone properly. So I took maybe 15 photos up there and only kept 5.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
I
they
mean,
were different. Maybe I'll try this, maybe I'll try this zoom, maybe I'll try this angle, maybe I'll walk over here, maybe I'll walk over here. And especially with the zoom, it's like, okay, well, you know what, I'm up here, let me do the 0.5 and the
mhm.
16:9, see how that turns out, because it's something I wouldn't thought about. And like I said, you have 2 to 3 different optical zoom ranges. you know Give them a
Yeah,
try. That's the biggest tip,
yeah,
is to say, yeah, see if it looks different. It may be,
yeah.
it may
That's right.
be meh, but experiment.
Yeah, that's the only way to find out. That's for sure. So you mentioned cold. Speaking of cold, uh, how's this for cold? Went to one of my favorite spots. It's a river
Oh wow.
that is it's downstream from a waterfall, Inglis Falls, which is probably my favorite waterfall in the area. And I was trying out some long exposure things. Now this was today. I took some yesterday, and I wasn't happy with them. And it's not because it was a brighter day. It was a sunshine. The sun was shining. That really didn't ruin the image or anything. But this one here, it was overcast, and I tried a few different things with the camera, and I used Reflex, the app Reflex. Now I know if you've heard me on this show, you've heard me talk about halide all the time. But I'm playing around with Reflex, and I got to tell you, I'm liking it. I'm liking what it can do. Um, and this this was like a half a second, I think, this shot. I didn't want the smooth, veiling in the water. I just wanted um, just to show that it was actually rushing, instead of
Mhm.
freezing the image. I wanted to show that it was moving quickly. And um, I just the 16:9 crop works well with it. And what did I edit this in? I edited this in Photos, I believe. And yeah, it's just one of my favorite places to go. Um, not much else I could say about it,
No.
really.
They almost look like ice lily pads.
Yeah, yeah, I find that with ice, um, when the water's moving so quickly behind it, and it just looks like it's floating above it almost. Yeah. The next one, this was yesterday when it was like minus 18 Celsius. It was very, very cold. My hands were numb by the time I got finished taking pictures, but this is at the same spot. So this is a little bit upriver from it, not far really. There's a walking trail that goes up there, and people have been walking it. It's well trampled down. But the way the sun was shining through the trees and landed on this pine tree, um, on these branches, it just really caught my eye. And of course, I did some editing on this, but basically, I wanted to bring out some of the detail in the tree trunks behind. Uh, keep the dark areas kind of dark, and brighten up the parts where the sunshine was. So and yeah, I just for me lately, it's been all about how light catches things, and this certainly caught my eye as I was walking along.
Yeah, the almost lime green color of the trees
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the light
and
hitting it the way it is.
that took a bit of doing to get that too, because in I believe it was Pixelmator Photo. Um, I played around with, in the color section of the app, you can select different colors, and I selected green, obviously, and I played with the bright the luminance and the saturation, not
Mhm.
so much the hue or whatever. But I find just, the luminance, lightening or darkening the color, can make a big difference, especially in
Yeah.
in a situation like this. And then, of course, saturating it, that helps too. And then I think all I did other than that was sharpen it a bit, and I might have added a very, very slight vignette. but yeah, just the way the sun was shining through it just caught my eye. And then there's this one. This is a portrait that I call Resistance. And I'm not going to give too much away about the backstory of this, but all I will say is that I've been waiting for years to take a picture like this. And I don't think this is going to be the final product either. I think I'm going to do some things to this to make it a little better. But this is a guy who is retiring from work, and I asked him quite some time ago if I could take his portrait before he cut his hair and shaved off his beard, because I call it resistance because he's resisting the temptation to do that. And this was, he hasn't shaved or cut his hair since the beginning of, you know what, basically since March of 2020.
Wow.
And when he's going to cut his hair or shave, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But it was a very quick impromptu photo session at work. He was out at the press I work on, and I just had, he says, "Do you want to do that picture?" Yeah. So portrait mode, and I did some editing in photos and moved it over to Lightroom. But like I say, I'm going to try a few different things to this before I say that this is the final one. But yeah, I've been wanting to take. Oh, and part of the editing process of this was to give it a little hint of the dragon effect. The dragon effect is a look, if you will, that was created by, I believe his name is Andre Dragon. He's a Polish photographer, artist, physicist, and you've seen these photos where the contrast is so heavy that you could just really see right into the wrinkles and crevices in someone's skin and on their face. Usually it's like a kind of a rough, tough kind of person with facial hair or something that that photographers are giving this look to. And that was kind of the inspiration for this one. I really wanted to emphasize, like, he's not a rough character by any means, but I wanted to make him look that way with this dragon effect. And it really worked out well. I was really pleased with the way it worked out. But again, I'm gonna play around with it and see if I can do some more things to it.
Portrait mode did amazing with his beard.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you get with the extra little hairs that go off out of the more of the mask, outside the mask, but you're not really losing. And portrait mode's gotten a lot better. That's some of the things that it can actually catch, where in the past it didn't really catch it real well.
Yeah. The now he had a shirt on over top of that. It was a t-shirt. It was like a Duck Dynasty t-shirt that had words on it and a picture of Phil Robertson. And the funny thing was, and I didn't notice this till after, but the portrait mode or the camera picked up on Phil's face on the t-shirt, and it was underneath his beard, but it blurred the beard so much that you could actually see his face.
That's
but
weird.
Then this guy, he said, I have a black t-shirt on underneath this. Would that work? And I said, yeah, let's try it. So he took his second shirt off, and it worked fabulously.
Yes. This that really emphasizes his face.
Yeah.
By having just more of a plain, I don't want to say plain, because the gray background behind his head, it has some, it's some different colors and brightness to it, but more of a neutral behind his head.
Yeah. And there's no special lighting on this. This was just the lighting that we use at work. And it just really worked, worked out great. So I put this thing on Flickr. And later that day, I got a notification from Flickr saying that we would like to put this in the In Explorer group on Flickr.
Wow.
So I hit accept or whatever to let them do that.
Yeah.
And, or no, maybe they just went ahead and did it. I can't remember. But since then, it's got 6.4 thousand views and 163 people have added it as a favorite. So that's that just, you know, that's my shot of the year. I tell you, it's I'm so pleased with it. And you know, it's like I say, I've been waiting years to take this. So I'm glad that I'm thankful to the guy. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to give his identity away completely. I mean, the people that know him will know who he is, but I'm so thankful that he allowed me to take this photo because like I say, he's retired, and when I would get the opportunity again, I'm not sure. So you know, thank you, Mr. Resistance. So now, so for my tip, seeing as how most of the northeastern United States is getting covered in snow, and it's winter in a lot of other places, I thought I'd give a quick little tip on winter photography. This was the day, yesterday, the day that I got that other shot of the trees. And one thing that I did with this shot that I'm kicking myself for, well, not really, but you'll see why in a second, is I overexposed it a little bit. So if you could look down at the bottom, you can see the snow is just blown right out. And I shot in JPEG, and you cannot get that back in JPEG. It is what it is. I tried darkening it down, and no, it's just blown out white. And so for those who can't see what it is, whether on YouTube or on the if you don't have YouTube or the podcast app running that could show the image, it's a photo of the river. There's a pine tree on the right, heavy laden with snow or crystals. There's a snowbank in the foreground at the bottom of the frame, and across the river is the bridge, that the walking bridge that comes across. If you go across the bridge and head up the hill, you go back to the parking lot, and there's other trees around too. But you know, the sun's shining right down on the snow right at the foreground, and I didn't compensate for that. It's just blown right out. So if you're using the Photos app, I highly recommend you tap to focus, but then also tap and drag your finger down to decrease the focus a little bit, or not the focus, but the exposure a little bit, and try to bring back some of the detail in that snow. If you have an app where you have a histogram, you'll be able to see on the right hand side of the histogram where it's blown out, and you can bring that back, especially if you're shooting JPEG. So when I took that, I noticed when I previewed it, I noticed that it was blown out. So I took it again, but I dialed back on the exposure, and the dark areas are darker, but there's more detail in the snow. There might even be a little wee bit that's still overblown at the bottom, but I'm okay with that. It was bright sunshine on the snow, and I was able to keep most of the detail in the dark areas on the other side of the river that's in shade. And but you know, I'm so glad that I took that second shot where I dialed down on the exposure to just stop that from overblowing. So when you're shooting snow in the sunlight, don't be afraid to dial it down, decrease the exposure, because you can always bring up the shadow areas later in the Photos app or whatever editing app you're using, because it's easier to get the detail back in the shadows than it is to get it in the overexposed whites. And if it's a cloudy day, while we're talking about snow, don't be afraid to take the exposure up a little bit to make the snow look a little whiter, but be careful not to overexpose, because on a cloudy day, I mean, digital cameras try to put everything to an 18% gray, and that's what the snow is going to look like. It's going to look gray. So if you want your snow to look white on a cloudy day, you will have to overexpose it just a little bit. But just move that slider around, your exposure slider on whichever app you're using, and make sure you get that brightened up a little bit. So that's my tip for winter photography. Trying to get the snow looking the best that you can.
Yeah, and I would only say that, let's say you're somewhere where you don't experience winter. Excuse me. This would still be good for like beach photography, because I imagine you would have the same problem where you have something that's highly reflective, very light tone that will just make everything bright back in your face.
Yeah, that's right. And waves, right, Dave? If you got a lot of big waves with the with white caps and that, it's hard to nail them when they're moving so quickly, but you get a pretty good idea of where your exposure's got to be at to make them look the best it can. Yeah, so that's our tips and our pictures, and it's a slow week, I think, for us this week. We were just saying before the recording that it's kind of mid-year. The next thing that's rumored to come out is the SE. What did you say about that, Dave? It was
they're barely talking about the 2022 SE, believe it or not.
Yeah,
because it's just going. They're going to. The rumors are going to put 5G on it, which makes sense.
Yes, that's right. That was
they're gonna change the radios out for 5G, which that'll hit battery life, because the 5G batteries are worse than the LTE in terms of the not the batteries, but the actual radios are a lot more power hungry. It's still not 5G everywhere, and it's not like ultra fast 5G, the type
like the millimeter wave.
Where it's like, I'm standing here now, I moved 1 foot and I lost it.
Yeah,
and it's still like that in a lot of places. But
do you honestly think, just on a side note here, do you honestly think that's really going to fly? Do you think they're going to be able to put that kind of infrastructure into place?
They could. There's nothing technically stopping them. Now the question
is, just a lot.
Will they put out the money? Now in certain locations, yes. You and me at our home locations, no.
Yeah,
cities,
I can't see it either.
Cities and near sporting facilities, yes. Even though when they started to roll out the millimeter 5G, they were going for, at least in Pennsylvania, for Philadelphia, and that makes sense. It's like almost 2 million or 1.5 million people in the city. So, having that in the city center, and there's tons of universities down there, so I could see that. And I want to say King of Prussia, PA, which, I'm not saying anything bad about the location, King of Prussia, but it's known for having a large mall and not much else. And being a suburb of Philadelphia. Yeah, it doesn't have like a large of anything else. But kind of lost in that was if we were like, guys, we're the second biggest city in the state, and our counties almost, Philadelphia County and Allegheny County, where I'm at, they're not that much different in size. And it's like, would you like to put something here, maybe, please, over here, western part of the state?
I gotta wonder if that. I have to wonder if that millimeter wave would just actually eat up the battery life. Like if 5G is kind of hard on it.
I think it would start to eat up battery life, but for it to work, you really have to put it somewhere where you have a critical mass of people. So, I said, I could see near arenas and stadiums. Even though like a hockey arena will have Wi-Fi per se versus that, but like an outdoor football stadium, a baseball stadium where, like I know the local stadiums here are small. The football stadium's 60 some thousand. Baseball only holds like 38 or so. So it's not like bigger cities where they have exceptionally large like AT&T Stadium down in Dallas, where the Cowboys played. It holds 100,000 people.
Now that being said, would
I can see
this is getting this is getting
but I could see them putting the money into that for a marketing, because people are like, oh my goodness, it's so quick here. I am shocked how quick it is. And they go home and how much slower it is. And they're like, I gotta get me some of that.
So, and we're not gonna beat this one too hard to death here, but with okay, let's just say for instance they put it in a stadium with 50,000 people. If you've got even 30,000 of those people with a phone capable of that speed, and they're all using that network, I don't know if there's enough pipeline in that small area to be able to handle that. You know what I mean?
I would say there's ways around it, and it would take a lot of money and a lot of infrastructure put into it.
Yeah.
But I could see that again, it's just 100% marketing, because most arenas are used more than anything else in my mind are baseball stadiums, because you have 81 home games a year.
Yeah.
Where football, at least American football, you have 8 or 9 home games, and you got preseason, which is another 2 probably at most. So you only use it for football 10 times a year, out of 365 days. Baseball, at least you got 80 some games before out of the whole thing. Hockey is a little different because it's indoor, and I know a lot of places try to push Wi-Fi, but unless you get like a critical infrastructure, or you need that dense, straight, dense, and you need a line of sight.
Yeah.
Millimeter wave dies if you don't have line of sight. So something like a arena or football stadium or baseball field, that definitely would help. And then maybe using that as a springboard. But that before we're all like, oh my goodness, I got gigabyte speed on my cell phone. There's
I feel sorry for the guys.
I'd
feel sorry for the fans who have to pay for those, what do they call them? Obs view seats. They're obstructed view. They're behind the foul pole or something. That would be just enough to drop that signal. Oh, yeah. But anyway, so I mean, who knows? I mean, like technology.
But like you said, we're kind of in the, for at least for Apple, they may come out with a spring phone, but the SE is never a big splash phone. I'm not saying it's a bad phone. It's not a splash phone.
It's not
no, especially this year. I think Apple's going to concentrate on iPad, MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, Mac Pro. The cheese grater.
Oh, do you think it's going to come back again?
Well,
so soon?
Currently they have the cheese grater, right? They have the Intel cheese grater, though.
Yeah.
They got rid of the trash can. They brought back the cheese grater. I could see that getting replaced with an M1 Ultra Super.
Like the M1 Max iPad or MacBook Pros are blowing that latest $50,000 cheese grater out of the water, and it's really upset a lot of people.
Right. Now, the difference with the cheese, and I know we're getting off the phones here. The nice thing about the cheese grater is it's easy to replace the innards.
Yes.
Where none of the M1s you can replace. You can't say, I'm going to throw a little extra RAM in there. Oh, I'm going to swap out the hard drive. I'm going to put extra RAM. You can't do that.
And I've got buyer's remorse, because I've got my M1 iMac has 8 gigabytes of RAM, and I'm kicking myself for not getting 16. Not that it's really a big deal, but it just would have been a little better.
And the only way to increase it is, I think there's a way you can do external RAM via the FireWire.
I don't know. I haven't heard of that.
I know you can do external graphics cards, and of course, obviously external storage. I think there's a way, but it's not, like I said, it doesn't really work that well. But if you're desperate, I think there's a way.
And it might be pretty expensive.
It's going to be. Yeah. But yeah, I think that, the Mac Pro, the people who buy the Mac Pros, to say the MacBook Pros are not for average people It's true. You're buying a
Mhm.
MacBook Pro because that's part of your job. You know,
Yeah.
I have a friend who does video producing for local wrestling shows and other things. He needs a MacBook Pro because
Yeah.
he's editing. He's got, he has like a multi-camera setup where he's switching between camera one and this and switching here, moving here. You can see like the multi things here, and you got to change here, you got overlay graphics, the whole thing. Yeah, you need a MacBook Pro for that. If you're using a Mac Pro, not a MacBook Pro, a Mac Pro, that's a line item on a project that you're doing for somebody else.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
you're making money with it.
Yeah, our
You're making
services
money with it.
cost. Oh yeah, but our services will cost you $500,000. Here's this price here, here, and by the way, we need a $10,000 computer. And if you're willing to pay someone a $500,000, million, whatever, for their services, you're like, oh, $10,000 computer, yeah, of course, here. That because
Yeah.
then it's a lot quicker, and you don't pay the people as much.
Mhm.
You don't have to say, okay, and I'm compiling, and this is going to be done in 10 minutes versus, and I'm compiling, and it's done in a minute and a half. Makes a big difference. Makes a big difference. But that isn't your average person. That isn't even your average professional. Those are the, right. So when and now admittedly, Apple does stupid stuff. The wheels for the Mac Pro, the monitor stand, the monitor stand, which of course, if you're a professional, and this isn't really coming from me, this is me listening to professionals. They already have mounts. They're not going to buy the $5,000 stand that Apple puts out, no matter how pretty it is and the magnetic, and they're not going to buy it.
Yeah.
It's literally the equivalent of, you buy a car and they have these special floor mats that are specially designed just for your car, with the little engraving with the car on it, with the car name on it, and it only costs $2,000. Now, most people are going to be like, I'll go down the store and get one for $15. But if you're buying a $70,000 vehicle, 2,000 isn't that much more. Same thing with the professionals and the Mac. So I mean, but I said, I can see Apple pushing that, and there's rumors around the 14, and honestly, we're so far out. Whether they're going to go with a punch hole or a pill and a punch, or keep it, and which one has which, we're so far out, it doesn't make any sense to think about it right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll pay more attention.
We keep an eye on it though. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. If something really solid comes up, that looks like it very well could happen, we'll discuss it a little further then. But
I think we're still far enough away that if you need a new phone, get the best one you can afford.
Oh yeah. Don't wait.
Honestly, don't hold it. Honestly, if you're to the point of, if you think, I don't need the Pro, I can survive with just the plain 13. The 13 is a great phone, and it's a really good camera. Not as good as Pro, but it like Bruce's phone takes really good photos.
It sure does.
If it's a matter of, well, my budget's this much and I'm seeing what they're offering and I need a new phone because my own phone's dying and they can't really fix it, or it's going to cost $500 to fix it, so might as well get a new phone and trade in what I have. We're far enough out. Get the phone you need.
Yeah. Don't wait for the next one just yet. So
when we hit August, that's something different.
yeah, that's right. Well, I would say we got ourselves a show, Dave. Tell people where they can find you.
Sure, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter as Prof Pod. And if you want to see me really experiment at stuff, you can find me on TikTok as Dave Podner Jr.
All right. You could find me at, let's see. Well, the best place to find me, where it goes everywhere, is about.me/McMillan. And there's links to everywhere on there. And I believe there's even a link to my website that I've been working on. I'm updating it and trying to make it look a lot nicer. And it's shotoniPhoneonly.com. And I've been putting some more recent pictures on there and trying to trying to make it worth keeping. So you can check that out. And this show lives on iPhoneography.ca. It's on Anchor.fm and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, just about anywhere where your podcast feed could pick it up. And for the listeners who are not watching the YouTube channel, we're on YouTube. Just look for the iPhoneography podcast and you'll find us there. And, check out some of David Addison's stuff. He's got his own playlist on the channel. And check out his own channel too. Just look for David Addison on YouTube. He's got some really good stuff there. So I guess that's about it, Dave. Guess we'll see everybody on the next one.
Have a great one, everyone.
Since the last show, it's been okay. No, hold on. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hello. I'm not even say hello. 1, 2, 3 again.